They're at it again. Welcome back to Orange Hat Reviews, everyone. Hope you're all having a wonderful day. So it seems that the showrunners to the Rings of Power, I'm not going to call it the Lord of the Rings, because it's not Lord of the Rings. To be Lord of the Rings, it has to be done by Tolkien, or adapted with respect to Tolkien in mind. This show doesn't do any of that. So, with that in mind, let's get into this article where the showrunners are accusing show critics of being patently evil. Just more insults because people are not really liking the show. So, yeah, Prime Video, Amazon Studios, and Rings of Power showrunners participated in one of the most obvious damage control pieces in the history of media by doubling down on their offensive and vile rhetoric by calling critics of the show patently evil. Instead of working with Vanity Fair as they did in February, when they initially attacked Tolkien fans, this time Prime Video and Amazon worked with The Hollywood Reporter. Yeah, because I believe it was Vanity Fair that didn't give them a glowing review because the show actually sucks, but yeah. If you remember in February, Prime Video's Hatchet Man of Anthony Breznican and Joanna Robinson derided Tolkien fans as describing them as troll, the two wrote when Amazon released photos of multicolored cast, even without character names or plot details, the studio endured a reflexive attack from trolls. The anonymous online kind. The two then cited the Equality and Diversity Officer for the University of Glasgow Centre for Fantasy and the fantastic Marina Rios Maldonado. Oh God, that woman. Maldonado is a radical political activist who is interested in ethics, feminist history, and encouraging the other, or encountering the other in Tolkien. Now, just so you all are aware, the other basically meaning people of color, even though people of color existed in Tolkien, they just weren't elves or dwarves. That's not racist to point that out, folks. Just saying. So, yeah. But Vanity Fair has painted her as a Tolkien scholar to attack fans. Maldonado did what Prime Video and Vanity Fair wanted. She disparaged fans, telling them, obviously there was going to be push and backlash, but the question is, from whom? Who are these people that feel so threatened or disgusted by the idea that an elf is black or Latino or Asian? Well, considering that African American or African, Latino, Asian, they don't exist in the world of Middle Earth. Just because the name Middle Earth has Earth in it doesn't mean that there's nationalities from Earth in it. It actually is a fictional planet with the fictional countries. It is an entirely fictional universe. So they wouldn't have those specific types of earthly races in their story. Now, yes, they have people who are darker skinned. Yes, they have people like that in Middle Earth. I believe they were called the Haradrim. Yeah. But let's continue. Yeah, they got some weird stranger guy in there. Since then, Prime Video has deployed numerous media attacks to Tolkien fans. They used Elijah Wood, Sean Astin, Dominic Monaghan, and Billy Boyd, the four hobbits from the Lord of the Rings trilogy done by Peter Jackson, as props to denounce fans criticizing the show. Woods posed with Monahan and Boyd, with wearing shirts with a number of, different types of ears, and the phrase, "You are all welcome here," in Tolkien's Elvish, Quenya, I believe, because there's actually two Elvish dialects, Quenya and Sindarin, or Quenya and Sindarin, rather. Aston shared the picture of himself wearing the hat with the same phrase on Twitter, as you can see here. Most notably, the official Twitter account of Rings of Power issued a statement accusing fans of racism using the same "You are all welcome here" slogan. The statement began, "We, the cast of Rings of Power, stand in absolute solidarity against the relentless racism, threats, harassment, and abuse some of our castmates of color are being subjected to on a daily basis. We refuse to ignore it or tolerate it. I want to see receipts." Obviously, folks, there is all of these actors and people who are complaining about racism, they can't provide proof because they should have, and they would have already. But yet no proof has been provided. None. It is not racist to point out there's no such thing as a black elf in Middle-earth. It's not racist to point out there's no such thing as a black dwarf in Middle-earth. Now, I hear that the acting is very good by those two talents. That is fine. I'm not watching the show. I cannot make any distinction on that. But I am not going to acknowledge that show as Middle-earth, because it isn't. Tolkien would say that this is an absolute farce and it's trash. He described an adaptation during his time as blatantly murdering what he was trying to do. He would probably say the same thing with this. J.R.R. Tolkien created a world which by definition is multicultural, the statement continued. A world in which free peoples of different races, elves, dwarves, men, changelings, the sentient animals like the eagles. Yeah. Races. Those races specifically. And cultures come together in fellowship to defeat the forces of evil. Rings of Power reflects that. Our world has never been all white. Middle-earth is not all white. BIPOC, whatever that is, belong in Middle-earth, and they are here to stay. Except that you're not doing Middle-earth, Amazon. So yeah, you can say it's Lord of the Rings, it's not Lord of the Rings. Finally, all our love and fellowship go out to the fans supporting us, especially fans of color. Oh, so you're segregating your fans and saying that the fans of color get more love because they're colored race. Yeah. Who are themselves being attacked simply for existing in this fandom. You don't have any proof of that either. There's absolutely no proof of any of these claims. Added the series production team, we see your bravery and endless creativity. Your cosplays, fan cams, fan art, and insights make this community a richer place and remind us of our purpose. You are valid, you are loved, and you belong, they concluded. You are an integral part of the Lord of the Rings family. Thanks for having our backs, Namaria. So they're saying farewell in Elvish there. Yeah. Now, here's the thing. Nobody's ever had a problem with cosplayers who are of different colors because people universally support people showing love for for something that they like. I've seen black cosplayers as hobbits, black cosplayers as elves at different cons and whatnot. I've never been to the cons, but I have seen them in photos and whatnot, and I think that's fine. I have no problem with it. I think it's great to see that people absolutely love this stuff, and that they can actually identify this stuff with these characters, even though they're not the same color. Wow, it's almost as if people can identify as hobbits without the hobbits being required to be the same color. It's almost as if they can identify with being a dwarf without the dwarf being the same color. It's almost as if a person can identify with being an elf without the elf being the same color. Maybe you guys should actually learn from that instead of saying, "Oh, we see you and we are sorry that you're so oppressed and being attacked." There's no evidence that they're being attacked. I'm willing to bet that if you asked all these cosplayers, they would come out and say, "Have you been attacked?" And they would say, what? What you talking about? There have been numerous other stunts employees accusing the fans of being racist. None of it is anywhere near the truth, and most of it a deflection from the poor product that Amazon Video was advertising and has thus far delivered. The product that is far from anything Tolkien wrote about the Second Age in the Silmarillion, Unfinished Tales and Histories of Middle-earth. Not to mention the showrunners also admitted that they did not have legal rights to those books. Now, J.D. Payne, showrunner, has taken the attacks on fans to a whole new level in this article from The Hollywood Reporter. Payne tells them, the spirit of Tolkien is about the disparate peoples who don't trust one another and look different from one another, finding common ground in friendship and accomplishing big things. Humans, elves, dwarves, and hobbits. Those were the groups he was talking about. Hobbits stuck to the Shire because they were untrusting of the big folk. They didn't want to get involved with the matters that the big folk got into. Ugh. He adds, that's the spirit we tried to inculcate into every single comma and period in the show. That is aspiration, or that this aspiration would be offensive to people and enrage them is very hard for us to understand. Well, that's because you blatantly admitted that you are changing skin color of characters who are known and then making up characters because you can't faithfully adapt it. If you didn't have the rights to the Silmarillion to tell this story, you should never have even told it. That's something that I have been saying. You should never tell a story you don't have the source material to do so, if you don't have the source material to do so. So what are they protecting? I don't see how people, or what are they protecting? I don't see how people who are saying these things think that they're fighting for good. There is a line in episode 7 where Galadriel says every war is fought from without and within. That's not Galadriel. Maybe in name only, but that's not Tolkien's Galadriel. She was never a fighter or commander of the northern armies. She never fought with a sword or a blade in and against orcs and all that other stuff. Magic was her domain. But anyway. Even if you're fighting for something you think is good, if you do something worse in that fight, then you become evil. I don't see how people who are saying these things think that they're fighting for good. It's patently evil, he concluded. So yeah, he's calling people like me and like other people who have acknowledged that this isn't the world that Tolkien wrote in that show. They're calling us patently evil. And people wonder why we don't watch their shows. People wonder why we don't watch their content, especially when they feel the need to insult people simply for having a different opinion or for pointing out facts that they find inconvenient. First off, Payne's assertion is a patent lie that he sugarcoats with his own fake platitudes in order to justify the horrific production that he has created. One only needs to look at how the first episode ends and Galadriel's rejection of the equivalent of heaven to realize the evil that lies underneath the rings of power. I will not say the first bit in front because that would be an insult to Tolkien. Not only does she reject heaven, or the Undying Lands apparently, but a memory from her now dead brother telling her we cannot know which light to follow until we have touched the darkness implies the heaven she rejects is actually evil. It's repulsive. So they actually went there. They actually, wow. They actually said that, are insinuating that the Valar are evil. Wow. Payne's own director also admits that the show does not embrace this idea of friendship. Wayne Chi Yip detailed the scene in episode 5, Partings, specifically tried to show that Galadriel was entrapping and manipulating Halbrand to do her bidding. He explained, what Aaron, my cinematographer, and I wanted to do was create the sense of entrapment. The scene starts with Galadriel finding Halbrand at the end of the day in the blacksmiths, and she feels she has the upper hand because of information that she's found about about the mark that Halbrand wears around his neck. This is surely the spirit of Tolkien that Payne is talking about, right? So much friendship! Again, Payne is a liar. Even if we imagine that Payne isn't lying, he then tries to paint himself as the victim, as all Hollywood types are now inclined to do, especially when their blatant lies are called out for what they are. That is true. They do that so many times, and sadly there are people who I know who defend that. Who defend all of this sort of ridiculousness. And that's their prerogative. I welcome their difference of opinion. I may not agree with it. But yeah. He's the one who's being oppressed by the people rightfully calling him out after he took a butcher's axe to Tolkien's Legendarium. Emptied the guts, then filled it with cheap plastic from China, and then proceeded to sell the now rotting and plastic-filled corpse as the real Legendarium. People are protecting Tolkien's true work. That answer is pretty obvious. As an example, that's why critics, including this writer, routinely criticize the depiction of Galadriel as everything contrary to how Tolkien not only wrote her, but how he wrote about her in his numerous letters. His whole assertion about the spirit of Tolkien is in contrast to what Tolkien wrote about Second Age in letter 131 to Milton Waldman. This is going to be a longer video, folks, sorry. Tolkien detailed, the three main themes are thus: the delaying elves that lingered in Middle-earth, Sauron's growth to a new Dark Lord, master and god of men, and Numenor, Atlantis. They are dealt with analytically, and in two tales or accounts, The Rings of Power and The Downfall of Numenor. Both are the essential background to The Hobbit and its sequel. He went on to elaborate, in the first we see a sort of second fall, or the last terror of the elves. Last error of the elves. There was nothing wrong, essentially, in their lingering against counsel. Still, sadly, the mortal lands of their old heroic deeds, but they wanted to have their cake without eating it. They wanted the peace and bliss and perfect memory of the West, and yet to remain on the ordinary earth where their prestige as the highest people, above wild elves, dwarves, and men, was greater than at the bottom of the hierarchy of Valinor. So yeah, they wanted the peace and bliss, but they also wanted to keep their high station. Then discussing the fall of Numenor, Tolkien details, the downfall is partly the result of an inner weakness in men, consequent, if you will, upon the first fall, unrecorded in these tales, repented, but not finally healed. Reward on earth is more dangerous for men than punishment. The fall is achieved by the cunning of Sauron in exploiting this weakness. Its central theme is inevitably, I think, in A Story of Men, a ban or prohibition. The most vile thing that Payne has done is he tries to turn Tolkien's own writings against Tolkien defenders and then proceeds to call the defenders patently evil. Letter 81 to Christopher Tolkien, or J.R.R. Tolkien, wrote, "You can't fight the enemy with his own ring without turning into an enemy. But unfortunately, Gandalf's wisdom seems long ago to have passed with him into the true West." Tolkien also discussed this theme in letter 131 to Milton Waldman when he wrote, "The enemy in successive forms is always naturally concerned with sheer domination. And so the Lord of Magic and Machines, but the problem that this frightful evil can and does arrive from an apparently good root. The desire to benefit the world and others speedily and according to the benefactor's own plans is a recurrent motive." Wise words. What critics of Rings of Power are doing is not evil. Wanting this adaptation to be true to Tolkien's original works is not wrong. What is wrong, what is evil, is painting people who want an honest and true adaptation as patently evil. As the Catechism of the Catholic Church says, truth or truthfulness is the virtue which consists in showing oneself true in deeds and truthful in words, and in guarding against duplicity, dissimulation, and hypocrisy. Ouch. Yeah, take that, Payne. Payne has not shown himself true in his deeds or his words. He dissimulates every chance he gets and is, clearly being duplicitous in his attack on Tolkien fans. What do you make of Payne and Prime Video doubling down on their attack against Tolkien fans? Honestly, this is a very good article by Bounding into Comics and John F. Trent, by the way. Shout out to both. Honestly, I think that the fans are not going to back down. I have said it many times. You have your smaller franchises with their tens and hundreds of millions of fans. And then you have Tolkien's world, which numbers in its fandom in the billions. It's a whole different animal. You got your rabbits like Terminator. You got your rabbits like Star Trek, Star Wars. You got your rabbits like all those other little franchises. And then you got Tolkien, which is frickin' equivalent to one of his own creations, and Calagon the Black, a dragon that literally crushed mountains underneath his feet. That is what you, or these idiots, are dealing with. They're dealing with a backlash of hundreds of millions of people. Not just those on Twitter, but those other people who will dare speak out against them, and rightfully so. Folks, I have said it many times, this is not Tolkien's work. It never will be. Just because there are characters with the names of his characters in this story does not make it Middle-earth. Just because there are perceived hobbits, the Harfoots, does not make it Middle-earth. Dwarves does not make it Middle-earth. Elves and whatnot does not make it Middle-earth. Their version of this story does not make it Middle-earth. Tolkien's work and adaptations with the respect to his work in mind would make it Middle-earth. As I have also pointed out before in other videos, Tolkien sold the rights to movie studios for $1 to his work. He sold his movie rights for $1 because he knew that they could never 100% be faithfully adapted. Peter Jackson tried very hard, but he also knew that certain mediums could not be translated the same way. Yes, there are changes like Arwen saving Frodo instead of her brother, and other things as well, adding in characters, which was a poor decision on Peter Jackson's part for the Hobbit trilogy. But yes, he actually tried doing it with Tolkien's work in mind, and respect to his work in mind. These guys had no such morals. Anyway, that is going to be the video. I know it's a longer one. I am sorry. But I needed to read this all out so that you can all understand that this show is not worth supporting. You may like it, sure, on a subjective level, fine. But it's not worth supporting. Not in my opinion, anyway. Anyway, folks, that is going to be the video. You all know the drill. Like, comment, subscribe, share, all that jazz. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. What do you think of what you have heard in this article? What do you think of the showrunners calling people who defend Tolkien's work patently evil? Let me know all your thoughts down in the comment section below, folks. This has been Orange Hat Reviews. Stay humble.